Welcome to Studio Stories. I am Michaelangelo Wolfe. This is my story. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, to a father who started early as a black man in IBM, one of the first to be hired to IBM back in '67, and an educating mom. We are extreme music lovers. I was raised with, for the first 6 years of my life, with gospel music, jazz, and classical. At about 6 or 7, I found Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley, and that's how our family kind of went. Music was a big deal, but so was inner self and figuring out who you are and being the best at whatever you make a decision to be. So music was that. I lost music and found some sports along the way. Got really kind of interested in soccer, still am, big fan. But once music came back to me, it actually came back to me in a bunch of different ways. Technology was starting to change, and MPCs were coming out, and I remember the first synthesizer that I was able to record on. It was some kind of wacky Casio that my parents had, and I thought it was just craziest thing I could do is make a beat, even if it was as simple as possible, make a beat, play a melody, and then record something else over that. Like, that was the coolest thing. And then 4-tracks hit. And I remember when 4-tracks hit, I was listening to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, and the Beastie Boys. And so, to me, it was like, I think I might be able to try and do all of that on a 4-track, right? Pulled off some cool stuff, kept learning, found myself, I would say, what was that? 1995, hot years, 1995, 96, actually found myself starting my first kind of real band, or what we thought was a real band. It was a band called Spudnik. Yeah, we were first in space with acid jazz in Georgia, even though I'm not from Georgia, and neither were most of the guys in the band. Forgive me if I cry. I believe in the spirit of things, so I get a little crazy, a little zany. Anyway, so Spudnik happened, and we were about acid jazz and about trying to record as many cool things as possible, and at the same time take all those things and maybe play them live too, right? Because there was, like I said, MPCs, but we had also live musicians because we had a saxophone player and you know, guys bringing it in moves, and so it was like trying to mix all the old things with the new things, right? So like at that time, it was kind of cool to once again have things to record and sample ourselves, right? So we started like, okay, let's use this MPC, which to us is like this, you know, this amazing treasure of mega power. So let's sample this saxophone, and let's actually see if we can get it to go backwards, because we've got this reel-to-reel, because we think we're so cool that we have a reel-to-reel from 1975. So we started discovering things, right? And continuing to learn things. We were in a band, and it was artistry before it was recording. And then we did our first EP, and it sounded horrible, even though we know that we really nailed all the tracks. And that being the case, we started looking for somebody who knew more than we did about recording us. And lo and behold, we found this guy, Jeep Hook. And Jeep Hook is, he's an extraordinary engineer and musician, and guy to drink pints with if you want to. And he started showing us what engineering was actually all about in the studio. So we got to a point where we began to, if nothing else, start thinking about music sounding, how it sounds, not just on an ear level or like, you know, how somebody vibes to something, but much more on a sonic level. Because we realized that to be professionals, if that's what we were trying to be, because we weren't still, we were in college and just out of college and just having fun. But if we wanted to be professionals and actually start making money the way we were starting to make money, we had to understand more than just the music and the artistry. We actually had to understand the sound, right? So we got into that. Yeah, so at that same time, I mean, this was like the late 90s in Atlanta, right? It was really popping off. And I mean, some of the cats we knew actually were beginning to get not just seen with the music that they were producing, but getting Grammys because of the music they were producing, right? So just as artists, we continued to develop. We ended up going from Sputnik into another fusion of kind of half of Sputnik and a couple other guys that we had met, and girl that we had met. And it was a band called Ariel 2012. It started out as Ariel, but ended up being Ariel 2012 eventually. And we did really well for ourselves in the sense of doing live electronica and live dance music, right? But once again, the problem was actually trying to get the perfect recordings, because we knew that, well, we ended up finding out that we could actually rock a dance floor, but at the same time, the dance floor doesn't exactly translate to, at that time, CDs. So creating the live thing was not what it was about. We wanted to create a track, you know, a single. I mean, that's when singles all of a sudden became something important. Before, it was albums were much more important, and having one single was good, but it was about having a whole album. So the whole focus from an artist standpoint, even recording, was about, you know, this big picture, right? But then at that era, the late 90s, it was all singles. And so it was all about not only writing the single, but it was also about being able to record the right single and record it properly, right? So we would do things like, I remember since it was Atlanta, we used to test it in the club, right? And when I say the club, I don't mean the dance club. There's another club in Atlanta that most people don't know about, that many musicians in Atlanta test their music in, because sonically, those places have the most bass and at the same time, really good highs so you can hear the music. And if it moves the room, that those particular clubs, you know, things like, what is it, Magic City, or if you can move a room in Magic City and you're in hip hop, well, then you actually might have a track that sonically is right and musically is right. Likewise, any other ones. But we digress. So it was always about being able to track something properly. And we knew that the guys that we know, they had great studios, amazing studios. So we needed them because they actually had the understanding of tracking things. They had the understanding of ADATs and tape and all this other stuff that we didn't even know about, right? So as all of that is happening, technology is shifting. So, you know, I've found myself at boards of really big names, not as an artist, or not as one of their artists, but as a local artist that they were helping out, right? So it was, to me, one of the most important things, or a few moments in my life that now help me in having a studio and recording my own music properly, and then even being able to turn around and help other artists that I know record their music properly, is from some of these moments where big name producers, other engineers that were, you know, two come to mind, one being Dallas Austin. He actually gave us a tool. He gave me a couple tools that I thank him today still. Because for one, he told me to be an independent artist, because there's so many artists, especially at that time, that were not independent. And he knew the truth of it. And at that moment, we were all just kind of homies hanging out in, fortunately, his studio, right? So he taught us, make sure you guys handle your own stuff. Know your own business. You can always have somebody helping you, but know your own business. Don't let it slip that fast, because it can slip really fast. The other things he taught us were about engineering. He realized that we wanted it, and so, but at the same time, he realized he shouldn't give us what he was giving other people necessarily, or what the industry gives other people. So he gave us the tools of actually recording ourselves properly. Of how to engineer your own work, and to use other people's work that you hold high as your gauges, right? Like, those are very important tools that a lot of people don't ever catch. So, you know, it's been a wonderful thing to be able to have, from an artist standpoint, walk into a well-known studio and be taught not only how to be an artist, but to be a producer at the same time, produce yourself. Learn how to produce yourself. Because now I'm able to have a studio and bring those same tools because I don't mind sharing. To me, it's about, I'm here talking to you about music, and music is about such a creative force that if you were to hold it to yourself, shame on you. So, that being the case, my tools are your tools. Hopefully, your tools become somebody else's tools, right? So that was, a very interesting experience that Dallas kind of gave us. Not so much, yes, he gave us some tools, but he gave us the understanding of this is how you treat people in a certain way. Like Dallas didn't have to give us that freedom. He could have said, okay, I'll sign you to this contract, and whatever record label we would have been signing to at that point, that would have been on us and our knowledge and any kind of attorneys we would have had. Because at that point, Dallas would have been just the producer or the writer. Well, the beauty of that moment is Dallas was the producer, the writer, and the mentor and the friend to say, I'm not gonna run you into an industry that you don't understand yet. You guys go find yourselves out, figure out who you are, and go after that independently even. And I'm here to help you. And he's been there to help. But that's an amazing thing to have in an industry that sometimes can be really hard. Another experience that I had was with an amazing engineer, Ben Allen. Ben was working on the first Gnarls Barkley album, and at the same time we were coming into the studio working on some new material that was going on 99X at the time, which was a radio station here in Atlanta, and we were like the first electronica band to be on 99X. So we were really trying to, once again, craft our artistry enough to make it radio worthy, because we were underground, club worthy already, but we weren't necessarily radio worthy. So we realized that it had to do with not only the music, but it also had to do with the sound of how we recorded ourselves, right? So we were sitting down in these sessions with Ben, and we were working on what we thought was the dopest track that we had, which ended up being one of the best tracks we ever wrote. But we thought it was already finished. We were like, Ben, this is the way it's got to go, and you got to record it, and this is it, and that's that. And Ben sat me down for 2 days straight and made me write lyrics over and over and over and over and over again until what has come out now being the version that I never knew was there and everyone else remembers. So I had to write those lyrics. Excuse me, once again, I tear up because I live in the spirit of things. So I had to go through that moment to write those lyrics without Ben actually forcing a friend to tear up at that moment, because it was really kind of crappy. The other singer of the band actually did cry at that moment, Colleen. She had a really hard time that day, or those 2 days, because Ben he was relentless. And at the same time, he's sitting at this big old giant board mixing all of our music, right? So he's got a job that we actually are paying him for, but as an amazing engineer and producer, he took us to the next level, sat us down in his hallway, told us, sit down until you figure it out, come back to me until you got it. No, that's not it. That's not it even there. Keep going, break it again, break it again, break it again, break it again, until what came out of us is things that people still remember. So, that is the perfect place for me to remember, to bring to somebody else that's working with me, right? I find myself in front of, maybe it's not a board like Ben had, but now it's all in a box, right? But still, people come to my studio hoping that their craft will be the best that it can be for them, right? So my job is not to say, well, you know what, man, pay me X amount of dollars and I'll make that craft for you, because that's a lie. I'm also not supposed to tell him, you know what, man, I'm going to hold all my tools. I'm still going to make you pay for it. I'm going to hold my tools because you're not me and I'm me. Well, that's not it either, because those two guys I mentioned, they didn't do that. Either one of them could have said, hey, kid, not today. We'll work for you, but you're not going to get the gems, you're not going to get the pearls. and they gave me pearls, and there are pearls that I have to pass on because they gave them to me, and I have to give them to somebody else. So, whether you're an artist or producer, whether you're an engineer or somebody like funding an artist or whatever, like you have to realize like the studio is this amazing special, it should be an amazing special space, right? It should be a place where friends can get together, because to be honest with you, your engineers, they don't have to be your friend before you walk in, but they better be seen as you better be looking at them to be your friend at that moment, right? Because as an artist, you're supposed to be shedding your skin. You're supposed to be opening your heart. You don't want some guy behind the board thinking you're less than you are, right? So you have to give these people these tools and this power over you in a certain way, right? And you have to allow it, or else the best in you won't come out. And these guys actually showed me that, and it's like a very, very important piece of the moment in a studio. No matter what you're doing, whether you're recording music, whether you're filming something, it doesn't matter. It's still a creative moment that unfortunately is attached to all these finite things like cameras and microphones, right? So you have to play both sides of the brain. So it's great to have people give you tools that are on one side of the brain, because you're already on your right side of your brain because it's creative. So it's nice to have these safe tools from the left side of the brain to like, oh no, it is about the process. I do have to keep going. I have to keep firing until I get it right? So it's all about the studio. I'm good. I don't know if that's enough. I'm like shedding tears in front of the camera. Yo, you've been watching Studio Stories. I am Michaelangelo Wolfe. Keep working. It's worth it.